As fall begins to arrive and our temperatures cool down, it's time to start thinking about how you're going to take care of and overwinter those non-hardy plants you have that you want to keep. So let's talk a little bit about some of the tropical plants first. For example, we have this plumeria, and plumeria is a very beautiful plant. It's native to Hawaii, but believe it or not, it will be easy enough to take care of this winter. All you have to do is take it in its pot into a basement or a shed or a garage, somewhere where it's frost-free, and just leave it alone. Don't water it, don't really give it any extra sunlight, and it will go completely dormant and be just fine. One of the good things about plumeria is you might think it might get too big or too wide. It will want to grow, but if you just keep it in a small pot, that will minimize its size so you can take better care of it. Another good one is mandevilla, but you have to treat this one completely different. Mandevilla needs sunlight and water all year long. And so this I would put in my greenhouse, or if I didn't have a greenhouse, I would put it in a very sunny window and water it and take care of it just as I do outside. One thing to note too though is before you bring a plant like this indoors, you want to make sure there aren't any pests riding along. So what I recommend is you spray it off with soapy water and then leave it out to dry and then bring it in. Or even better, dump the whole plant into a big bucket of soapy water, and that will ensure that all the pests drift away in the water and you can bring your plant inside safely for the winter. Now let's talk a little bit about subtropicals, and one of the ones that has become particularly popular are bananas. And bananas a lot of their care depends sort of on their variety. For example, muses, which this is not, are actually very cold hardy, up to zone 4 they say. Of course that's more than adequate for us here in Tennessee. This, however, is a more tropical variety, and if it's one of the more tropical varieties, it probably won't be able to survive above zone 8B. So what I do with this is I just keep it in a pot. I put it in the basement in the winter, I don't water it, I don't give it any real light, and it just goes dormant, similar to the plumeria. And then I'll bring it back out when the temperatures start getting warmer. It doesn't like anything really below the mid-40s. I'll let it start coming out in April, May, and then I'll just start watering it again and it'll leaf right back out. Another thing that you can do if you have yours in the ground and you're worried about them and you want to make sure they're protected is you can just dig them up. The root balls of these are very small, believe it or not, and you can trim them down to the size of a 2-gallon pot very easily. You don't even have to put them back in a pot. You can literally just roll them into some cloth or a blanket or some newspaper and leave them in your basement, and then take them out, repot them, put them in the ground, and they'll be just fine. You take care of brugmansias and dahlias a little differently. Dahlias are originally from Mexico, and they won't typically survive a winter here in Metro. Now in zone 8 they're fine, and in 7B if we have a mild winter they may be just fine. But if you want to make sure and you don't want to lose your precious dahlias or brugs, one thing you can do is dig them up. And you will do that after it's been hit by frost and it'll turn brown. Leave it in the ground about a week, and then dig up the tubers, cut off the dead foliage and stuff, and then what you do is you just hose them off with a sprayer to get off pests and get the extra dirt off, because you don't want any moisture on the tubers. Then once you've done that, let them dry a day or so, and then what you'll do is you'll just put them in a milk crate lined with newspaper and cover the tubers completely with a little potting soil or topsoil. Store them until May or April, whenever we're past our frosts, and they'll be just fine. This method of digging up and storing over winter also works for things like caladiums and any non-hardy varieties of elephant ears. When it comes to tender perennials, there's one thing you definitely need to do, and that's take cuttings. Things like Amistad salvia, which this is, root very easily and can be stored in your greenhouse or a sunny window over the winter. Then you'll just pot them on as they grow. But sometimes, if the winter is very mild, these will actually survive the winter here in Nashville. This one actually came back over the winter. But you want that double insurance policy, because all we need is one real bad cold snap and this guy won't come back. This also applies to a lot of other types of tender perennials. Let's talk a little bit about perennials in general, even hardy ones. So when you have things like these asters or these goldenrods, it's a great idea not to bother cutting them back until February, maybe early March. And the reason is because you want to be able to provide habitat for wildlife, so they will feed on these seed heads, they'll have shelter in these woody stems over the winter months. And also in January when we have a frost, you'll be able to enjoy the frost on these beautiful stems and bloom heads. But there are other types of perennials, such as our hostas, which are more herbaceous. And for those, you don't want to leave the leaves over the winter. In fact, what you want to do is cut back any dead, mushy growth after we have a frost so that it will keep moisture away from the crown of the plants, and they'll have a better chance of surviving and being healthy next spring. I'm very fortunate to have a small greenhouse, but it fills up really quickly with geraniums and begonias and all the things I want to save over the winter that I don't want to bring in the house. And so I also make use of cold frames. And this is one I have that I bought. And as you can see, I've already got some things in it. This will keep my plants completely warm and protected during the winter. It's especially good if they're almost hardy, like tender perennials. And so this is really a very useful thing. It gets quite hot though, so I'll lift the lids on warm winter days. But I will say that it's also important to have it facing south so that it gets maximum sunshine during the winter. In the summer months, we mulch to conserve moisture around our plants and reduce the need to water them. But in the winter, a lot of perennials actually appreciate a good layer of mulch as well. One of those for sure is cannas. And cannas are hardy here, but they need the little extra protection, especially if we have a very cold winter. And so you mulch them no deeper than 3 inches and use a nice loose material. Straw works, pine needles, bark chips, compost works well as well. And then you can make sure that they have adequate moisture, they don't suffer freezing and thawing constantly in the winter, and it just puts them in better shape for next year's blooms. Here's another trick for keeping your plants warm in the winter. Stone and brick absorb the solar energy and release it slowly over the coldest hours. And so if you have a brick fence or a brick walk, your plants are going to get a little bit of extra warmth just because of that. We spend a lot of time and money on our plants, and so we hope that these tips help you keep your plants safe during the cold winter months. If you love gardening, you'll want to subscribe to our channel. Home gardening tours, tips from growers, and lots of plants. Until next time.